Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I'm so incredibly glad you're joining me. So, today we're tackling a deeply misunderstood topic, and we're going to explore it together with warmth, openness, and, just a genuine desire to actually understand. We're diving into obsessive compulsive disorder, specifically how it plays out in daily life and right inside our own homes. Because our real goal today is to build a wholesome, compassionate understanding of what is actually happening behind the behaviors we might just see on the surface. To kick things off, I want you to imagine something for just a second. Imagine you have a smoke detector in your house that is incredibly loud and, honestly, highly effective. But what if it started going off not just for a raging fire, but literally just for the steam from your morning shower? Or for a piece of toast that got just a tiny bit too brown? How completely exhausting would it be to feel the sheer terror of a house fire every single time you tried to make breakfast? Well, that right there is the reality for someone living with OCD. Okay, let's dive straight into this. Section 1. The misfiring alarm. First things first, we really need to completely dismantle that popular stereotype that OCD is just about, being super neat or organized. It's really not. OCD is actually a biological false alarm. It's a system that takes totally ordinary, everyday uncertainty and treats it like an absolute immediate danger. It's not a cute personality quirk, guys. It's a heavy pattern of alarm, doubt, and then relief-seeking that demands absolute certainty in situations where absolutely none exists. Basically, the mind raises a worry, the body feels intense tension, and the person feels quite literally forced to do something, anything, to make that screaming alarm quiet down. This comparison brilliantly illustrates the difference between normal care and OCD. Think of ordinary caution like a thermostat on your wall. It's flexible, right? It adjusts to the reality of the room, and once the temperature is right, it just gently shuts off. OCD, on the other hand, is that screaming smoke detector we talked about. It escalates completely beyond what the situation actually calls for. It's loud, it's urgent, and the worst part, it doesn't shut off just because you've logically realized there's no actual fire. Which brings us to Section 2, the loop of doubt. To understand exactly why these false alarms feel so incredibly convincing, we kind of have to look under the hood. The truth is, most of life is pretty blurry. You can never be 100% sure you locked a door or that you didn't accidentally offend a friend, right? Normally, the human brain just tolerates that fuzziness. But OCD, it latches onto that natural uncertainty. It's honestly like trying to watch a movie through a completely fogged up window. That blurriness makes you lean in and strain your eyes. OCD takes a tiny, fractional possibility and makes it feel like an absolute, 5-alarm emergency that you just have to solve right this very second. And because your brain thinks real danger is near, your body actually changes physically. Your heart rate shoots up, your muscles get all tight. The brain mistakenly interprets this physical feeling of urgency as actual, undeniable truth. Think of a normal passing thought like a standard sticky note. You look at it and you toss it away. But an OCD thought, that's a sticky note completely covered in superglue. It arrives with intense urgency, sticking to your attention. And you just keep noticing it because it physically feels loaded with undeniable meaning. So the really crucial point here is understanding exactly how this cycle traps a person. First, a doubt appears out of nowhere. Second, the distress and urgency rise up. Third, the person performs a compulsion, like going back to check a lock or asking someone for reassurance, which, yes, brings a tiny little bit of relief. But here's the trap. That relief teaches the brain that the false alarm was real. It's exactly like scratching a mosquito bite. Sure, it feels amazing for a split second, but it only irritates the skin more, pretty much ensuring the itch is going to come back even stronger the next time. All right, moving on to Section 3, OCD in daily life. When we look at the domestic setting, our houses, our apartments, we quickly see exactly why the home is the absolute perfect stage for this alarm system to hijack. Think of the home as this giant control room. It is packed with meaning, with responsibility, and with all the things we cherish most. We're talking safety, care, order, the well-being of our kids and our spouses. And because OCD absolutely loves meaningful things, it naturally attaches fear to the stuff the person cares about the most. The brain literally tells them, hey, if I don't keep checking these buttons, something terrible is going to happen to the people I love. And this manifests in ways we can see and ways we totally can't. Visibly, you might see repetitive checking of doors, or you might hear constant reassurance seeking, someone constantly asking, are you sure it's fine? Is everything okay? But a lot of it is completely invisible, like mentally replaying a conversation over and over again in their head, or totally avoiding a specific appliance just to prevent anxiety from spiking. It is so vital for us to understand that these actions are not personal preferences. Not at all. They are desperate, totally exhausting attempts to quiet a screaming mental alarm. Let's look a bit closer at that in Section 4, care versus compulsion. So how do we actually distinguish between a loved one's genuine care and the demands of this disorder? Well, we really have to separate preference from pressure. A particular person has preferences, right? They might say, I really like the kitchen clean. But at the end of the day, they can be flexible. But an OCD-driven person experiences intense pressure. The disorder tells them, I literally cannot rest unless it is done this exact way. It treats imperfection not as some casual annoyance, but as a literal threat that carries massive moral weight and a heavy sense of dread. Now, what's really interesting here is how breaking down this pattern helps you actually spot it in daily life. Look specifically at the feeling associated with it. Ordinary caution makes you feel concerned, sure, but you can eventually move on. OCD makes you feel entirely stuck. While ordinary caution lets us tolerate a little bit of uncertainty so we can achieve reasonable safety, OCD demands total, impossible certainty, and that leads to this repeated checking that is just incredibly hard to stop. Understanding this is a huge tool for separating the care from the actual compulsion. This brings us to our final part, Section 5, seeing the person. Once we truly understand this misfiring system, it can completely change our relationships, mostly because we can finally see the person who is trapped inside of it. There's a quote from the source material that just hits incredibly hard. OCD turns ordinary life into a surveillance job. The visible cost is all that time spent checking, but the hidden costs, they are absolutely massive. It's the daily decision fatigue, the deep emotional exhaustion, the loss of spontaneity, and just this constant, draining tension. Home literally stops feeling like a place to live and instead becomes a place you have to monitor. Validating that painful experience is such a huge step in supporting a loved one. So, what does this all mean for us? The big takeaway I really want to leave you with is this. We have to stop asking, why can't they just stop? Instead, we need to ask, what is the alarm system trying to protect right now? Because usually it's trying to protect love, safety, and responsibility. By simply shifting our perspective, we can look at the loving person behind the pattern with the dignity and compassion they deserve. We can finally understand that they aren't just being difficult, they're fighting a broken alarm. I really hope this explainer has given you the clarity to see both the fear and the person, and to offer support where it's needed most. Thanks so much for joining me today.